Am I live? Is it live? Let me check. Am I live? Am I live? I think yes, I'm live. Hello everyone. I hope that you all are having a great time. And yes, it is freezing outside. So if you're in your blankets, you must be having a great time. So yes, let me introduce myself. Oh, let me change the screen first. Hello everyone. Hello everyone, I hope that you all are having a great time and I welcome you all on this brand new, fresh YouTube channel of Unacademy, which is here to provide you with something extraordinary, something very new. Yes, Unacademy has pledged to cover all the boards, to cover all the examination that exist in the world. And this time we have brought you ISC and ICSE examination, right? So ISC and ICSE examinations now will be taught by great educators through the platform of Unacademy. So no student of ISC or ICSE will be behind because Omicron is on the rise. You cannot go outside and online education is the best thing that you can do, and Unacademy is here for you. So yes, new classes are started for class 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th. Yes, so all the subjects that you need to know about will be taught. And if I talk about myself, let me introduce myself. My name is Sourav Verma and I will be teaching you biology. I will be teaching biology to two classes 11th and 12th. So we will learn about all the important concepts, all the important things in a very well organized manner, and we will crack the exam with great marks. Not only will we get conceptual clarity, but the organization of the topics in our head that will allow us to remember everything. That is something very important, and that is something I always stress about, and I will keep that in mind that all the things are very well organized in your head. All right, so let us move on and let's see what we will be talking about today. So today's topic is common diseases. So basically this lecture is going to be a very light lecture. We are not going to do something very difficult or something very lengthy. We are just starting with a chapter, and the name of the chapter is actually human health and disease. Human health and disease. It is a very important chapter of biology for class 12th. It is very significant for your knowledge as well as in order to get marks in the examination, right? So this chapter or these topics that we are going to deal with in this chapter are something that we discuss every day now, because of the corona outbreak, everybody has a little idea about things like viruses and vaccines and immunity. All these things, they are pretty commonly known. So yes, as science students, it is your duty to learn a bit more, a bit technical terms related to it. Although nothing technical is going to be in today's class, we are just going to talk about what is health, how can we maintain good health, what are the factors that affect health, and then we'll talk about diseases, and then we'll talk about the common diseases. So today is the first lecture of common diseases. We'll only talk about a few bacterial and viral diseases. In the next session, we'll talk about all the remaining diseases and also the extra diseases that you can remember if you want to. I will only cover all the major ones before, and if we have time, we will cover all the extra ones as well. Now, if you want to know all the things about the syllabus, then you should join, or you should take the special classes that we have for you on the Unacademy app and Unacademy websites. So special class, why are they so special? Because they will provide you with high-end teaching with no cost. Yes, they are free classes. So if you want to join those special classes, use this code Sourav be live, and you can get those access to those special classes for absolutely free. And special classes have started. I have already taught immunity, which is again a very important topic of this chapter, right? So we have already started with immunity, and today we are going to start with the very beginning of the chapter. So yes, I advise you to take this class and then the special class, and after that we will start a crash course on an Academy app. And if you want all the topics to be covered or revised in a well organized manner, then you can join the crash course as well. All right. So yes, today's motive is this. So I think we should get started with today's discussion. So here you go. Let us discuss what is health, how can we maintain health, and all the basic things about health. So right at the start, we have this definition of health. So what does it say? It says that health does not simply mean absence of disease. This is something crucial because most of the people think that if you do not have any disease, you are healthy. But that is actually not completely correct, right? So it is not just absence of disease or having physically or being physically fit. So if you have a great body, it does not mean you're completely healthy. Health is something that has various aspects to it, right? So it could be defined as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. So only and only if you're physically fit, you're mentally sound, and your position in the society, your behavior with the society is good, and you are very well in all these aspects, then only you are healthy. So this is the definition of health given by the World Health Organization, right? So this definition is given by the WHO. And this is the most accepted definition of health. And this is something that you should remember. So if anyone asks you what is health, this is the definition. It is the well-being of it is the physical, mental, and social well-being, and it is not just absence of diseases. So I hope that is clear to you. All right, let's move on and talk about some few points related to health. So it says that when people are healthy, they are more efficient at work. Obviously, if you are healthy, then you can perform all your tasks with great efficiency. Okay, and this increases productivity and increases economic prosperity. So if you are doing your job very well, you will earn more money, you will contribute to the development of the corporation that you're working for, or you will develop the government as well, the country as well, and you will bring economic prosperity. Now, health also increases longevity. Now, what is this? Basically, it will increase your lifespan. Your expected life will increase. You will live for more years and you will live a great life. So it increases longevity of people and it reduces infant and maternal mortality. Mortality means death, right? So if the society is healthy, then the death of infant, basically small children, or mother, basically during childbirth, it will decrease, right? So all these aspects are related to the health. All right, let's move on. Now let's discuss about the major factors that affect the health. So let us talk about the factors affecting health. So it says that health is affected by three major factors. What are these? So the first factor is the genetic disorders. So see, some of the diseases or disorders, they are in our genes. For example, color blindness. Color blindness is something related to our genes, right? And we have other disorders like phenylketonuria, sickle cell anemia, hemophilia. There are several diseases that you have already learned in genetics, right? So these genetic disorder, they basically mess our health. So it says the deficiency with which a child is born and the deficiency or defects which the child inherits from the parents, right, from the birth, these are genetic disorders, and yes, they always adversely harm the health. The second factor are the infections. What are infections? Infection is the entry of any foreign matter, right? Infection means entry of foreign material inside the body. Foreign material in body, right? So it can be any disease causing organism as well. It can be a pathogen. I hope that you know what a pathogen is. If not, don't worry, I will tell you what a pathogen is in today's lecture, right? So entry of all these disease causing organisms, they can cause infections, and infections also affects the health badly, adversely. The third point says the lifestyle, how you live basically. So if you have a good lifestyle, you will be healthy, otherwise not. So lifestyle, including the food and water that we take, rest and exercise that we give to our bodies, the habits that we have or we lack. So all these things that we do on a daily basis, all the way we live our life, the way we spend our day, they also affect our life. So if we do not have a well balance of a balanced diet and exercise and all these things, then yes, our health will get affected and we will get all these disorders like the heart diseases or obesity and things like that. So yes, these are the three major factors that affect the health. All right, let's move on. Now let's talk about what a good health is. So we all know that if we are physically fit, mentally fit and socially fit, then we have a good health. How can this good health be achieved? Let us see. So good health can be achieved and maintained by all these factors. So the first uh, includes balanced diet. So if you have taken all these nutrients in a well balanced amount and you have a balanced diet, you will be healthy. After that, we have personal hygiene. If you take regular showers, right? If you brush your teeth every day and you live in a clean environment, your surroundings are clean, you are hygienic, then yes, you will have a good health. And regular exercise, this is important. Your body needs to get a regular exercise, otherwise you will become lazy or obese, and obesity leads to a lot of different harmful effects to the body. So these are the first points related to this. So these are related to our lifestyle. Second point says regular yoga. Yoga is something fantastic. Now today's generation discards yoga because it is uh, Indian, but yoga is something accepted by the whole world right now. So yes, yoga is in the trend and it will always be in the trend because it is one of the major factors which affects the health, right? So if you are doing regular yoga, you will have not only a physically fit body, but also your mental health will also be great. So yes, yoga is a great way to get and maintain good health. After that is the awareness. Yes, awareness about diseases. If you know that by doing these certain activities I might get infected, you can prevent all these things. So the knowledge, the awareness about all these diseases, it is also a great thing which helps us to maintain good health. So awareness about diseases and their effects on different bodily parts can also help us maintain a good health. All right, the next point says vaccination, also called immunization, something which is going on at the moment in the world, right? So vaccination is something which provides us immunity against all these disease causing organisms, all these infectious diseases, right? So yes, infectious diseases are the diseases which can spread from one person to another, and vaccination is a great way of preventing them. How? Basically, vaccination helps us develop immunity against all these diseases, so our body can fight against them. Okay, and the fifth point says proper disposal of wastes, basically maintaining a hygienic environment around us. So proper disposal of wastes, control of vectors, right? Vectors, these are disease causing organisms. No, these are not disease causing organisms because disease causing organisms are pathogens. So what are these vectors? Basically, vectors are the organisms that carry pathogens. Yes. So they carry pathogens. They do not cause disease themselves, but they carry the organisms that causes disease. We will talk about vectors in shortly, right? And maintenance of hygiene in food and water resources. So yes, you should keep everything neat and clean if you want to get a good health. So these are all the common points that you should follow in order to get a good health. Okay, let's move on. Now let's talk about this theory which was earlier accepted, now it is discarded, but let's see what it is. So health for a long time was considered as a state of the body and mind where there was a balance of certain humors. What are humors? Basically body fluids. Humors are body fluids. So it is a very old theory, right? So earlier people used to think that the fluids of the body, if they are present in a certain balance, then the body will be healthy. There were four different humors. One was blood, one was yellow bile, there was black bile, and the last one was phlegm. You don't need to know about these humors, just get a basic idea of what this theory of humors was. So that is what the early Greeks like Hippocrates. Do you know who Hippocrates is? He is the father of modern medicine, right? So even Hippocrates, he used to believe that there are certain humors in our body and balance of humors, they influence our health. And it was also believed by Indian Ayurveda system as well. So yes, all these earlier scientists, they used to believe that there are certain humors and their balance, they control the health. It was thought that persons with black bile, again, this is one body humor. So the people who have a black bile, they belong to hot personality and thus they will have fevers. Fever is increase in temperature of the body. So earlier it was thought that black bile causes fever, which is not correct. So this idea is not something which was derived at using experiments. It was completely out of brain. It was just some people's theory related to this. There is no experimental evidence to this. So this idea was arrived at by pure reflective thought. It was just a thinking of someone. It is not experimentally verified, right? So this is the theory of humors and health. I hope that it is clear to you. Let's move on. And now let's talk about the person who discarded this humor theory, who said that this theory of humors is actually not correct. So the person was William Harvey. And William Harvey is an important name because he is the person who discovered blood circulation. As it says here, that the discovery of blood circulation by William Harvey using experimental methods and demonstration of normal body temperature in person with black bile using thermometer disproved the good humor hypothesis. So this whole idea of good humor hypothesis, it was discarded by William Harvey when he discovered the blood circulation, and he proved that even people with black bile can have a normal body temperature, right? So that is how he discarded the whole good humor theory which was describing health, right? So now we do not believe in this theory. This is not a correct theory. Okay, let's move on. And now let's talk about what we do believe at the moment. So it is believed that the mind, it affects the whole health, right? So in the later years after the discardment of the humor theory, so in the later years, biology stated that mind influences through neural and endocrine system our immune system, right? So this brain, this mind, it controls two major organ systems of our body. First is the neural system, the system of the brain and all the nerves, and second is the endocrine system. Endocrine system is the system of chemicals which regulate all the functions of the body. Yes, so these two systems are controlling systems of the body and they control our immune system, another system which is responsible for protecting the body against all the diseases and all the disorders, right? So our brain uses the neural system and endocrine system and they control the immune system, and that our immune system maintains our health, right? If we have a strong immune system, we will be healthy. Nothing, no pathogen will be able to infect us, right? So it was believed that mind influences health. It is true, So hence, mind and mental state can affect our health. This is somewhat true. Although, what is the direct relation of the function of or the state of mind and the health? This is something unclear. But we know that if we are mentally stable, we will be healthy, right? We will have less diseases because our immune system will be at its maximum strength. All right. So this is about mind and health. Let's move on. And now let's start the discussion about the diseases, right? What is a disease? What are the different types of disease? What are the organisms that cause the disease? So let us see. So it says that when the functioning of one or more organs or systems of the body is adversely affected. So basically, they do not function properly, we say that we are not healthy, and that is we have a disease. So this is how we find out that we have a disease, right? It is characterized by various signs and symptoms, right? So whether or not we are suffering from a disease, it is found out by certain signs and symptoms. Now, the terms signs and symptoms, they are different, they mean different things. The basic idea is that symptoms are the changes in the body that only the infected person can observe. Like if I am infected by something, symptoms are the things that only I can feel. For example, headache. No one else can see me and tell that whether or not I have a headache or not. Only I can feel it. So symptoms are things like this, like headache or stomach ache or nausea and things like that. All these they come under symptoms, something which the infected person can observe. Signs are something which some other person can observe as well as calculate, right? Sorry, measure as well, right? So symptoms can be temperature, right? Temperature is something that some other person can measure, and if the temperature is very high, we conclude that we have a fever and we might be suffering from any infectious disease, right? So this is the major difference between signs and symptoms, and these two are used to find out whether a person is infected by a disease or not. So I hope it is clear to you. Let us move on. So this is the table showing you the differences between a sign and a symptom, right? So symptom is something which the patient observes, right? So it is something that the patient will observe, and signs are something which the healthcare professional checks. So it is checked by the nurses and the doctors. So how are they? The symptoms are subjective. So basically you tell that this is how I'm feeling, right? You cannot give a number. Like you cannot say that I have a level 10 headache, because it is not something objective. It is subjective. You can tell how you're feeling. But the sign is objective. It has a particular amount to it, right? It has a certain value to it. For example, temperature can be high or low, things like that, right? But a symptom cannot be objectified like that. It cannot be objective. It is something subjective, right? Now the examples, let us see the examples of signs. So signs can be high blood pressure, right? Abnormal densities in lungs detected by x-rays, right? So all these things which can be observed using x-rays or different blood tests, all these are signs. But symptoms can be feeling of tiredness or pain, right? So if you're feeling pain, it cannot be measured, but it is something that you are feeling, and these things are symptoms. Another thing is observation of skin rash. So although skin rash can be observed by other people, but it cannot be measured, right? So yes, this is something that you are feeling, and it is also a symptom. So this is the major difference between a sign and a symptom. There is another term related to all these things, and that is a syndrome, right? Now what is this third term mean? What is a syndrome, right? Let us see. In the very next slide, I have explained what is a symptom. Okay, so we do not have a E in symptom. Let me just, sorry, we have in syndrome we do. Yeah, in syndrome we do. All right, it is correct. Now let us see quickly what a syndrome is. So we have already talked about symptom, a subjective complaint that is noted by the person with the disorder. So it is noted by the patient. Sign is a manifestation that is noted by the observer, right? Now, what is a syndrome? Syndrome is a collection of clinical signs, symptoms, and data. So, all the different symptoms, all the different signs, all the data, all the abnormal things that I'm experiencing, which are observed by me or the observer, all these things combined together, they form the syndrome, right? So syndrome is a wider variety that includes everything, right? So these are the three terms that you should know about. I hope that now you have understood all these three terms. Now let's move on and understand the types of diseases. So this whole hierarchical chart will explain you how basically what are the types of human diseases, right? So let us see. So human diseases can be broadly classified into two types. First is the congenital disease. Congenital disease are genetic disease, right? Something which you inherit from your parents. Your parents might have had a disease, and it is because there is a change in the genetic material, right? And those are the congenital diseases, right, which are present by the birth. Example is Down's syndrome, right? Other example can be Klinefelter syndrome, Turner syndrome, right? All these disorders, they have already been discussed in the chapter of principles of inheritance, right? Was it? No, in the, yes, in the principles of inheritance, you have already read about all these genetic disorders. We are going to talk about in this chapter about this acquired diseases. These are the diseases that you get from external environment or any infected person. So these are actually developed after birth, right? So they can be certain infections like AIDS, right? So AIDS is something that we acquire. In fact, the full form of AIDS is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. So yes, it is acquired. You that AIDS also spreads from mother to her fetus, right? So AIDS can spread from mother to the fetus. So the fetus will have AIDS since birth. So AIDS can be genetic as well. No, because AIDS is caused by a bacteria, and that bacteria moves from mother to fetus, right? It is not in the genetic makeup of the child. It is because the bacteria from the mother is transferred to the fetus, and this will come under acquired disease. So you should not get confused. Something which is caused due to change in the genetic material, due to abnormalities in the genetic material, is a genetic disorder, and something which is acquired through infection through certain bacteria or viruses, that comes under acquired diseases, right? So I hope it is clear to you. Now, the acquired diseases can further be classified. So acquired diseases can be of two types. They can be communicable or non-communicable. So communicable are also known as infectious. So these are basically the diseases which can spread from one infected person to another infected person. On the other hand, these non-communicable, non-infectious diseases, they do not spread from one individual to another. So let us see the examples of non-communicable diseases first. So it can be a disease caused by any deficiency. For example, beriberi. So beriberi is caused by the deficiency of particular vitamin, and that vitamin is vitamin B1, right? So beriberi is caused by deficiency of vitamin B1, vitamin B1, right? So it can be a deficiency disorder. Other than that, it can be a degenerative disorder where certain organs of the body, they are degenerating, right? They are dying. No, they are dying. The whole body is not dying. Any particular organ is dying, or a system is failing. It is malfunctioning. They all come under degenerative diseases. Like it can be any heart diseases, or it can be any respiratory diseases where you are not able to perform your normal functions. So all these, they come under degenerative disease. And again, these diseases cannot spread from one organism to another because no agent is causing them. It is because of the malfunctioning of your own body, right? After that, we have allergies. Allergies are hypersensitive reaction when you react in a highly intensive way to a certain change. For example, some people are allergic to dust, some are allergic to spices, or it can be anything, furs or certain animals as well. So yes, the hyper basically response to a certain change is allergy. And a great example is asthma, right? Some people find it difficult to breathe in the presence of certain aerosols in the environment, and this is because of asthma. Again, this is a disease which is non-communicable. Asthma does not spread from one person to another. And another example can be cancer. Yes, cancer, the very harmful, this disease caused in human beings, it cannot be spread from one person to another, right? Although there is some genetic basis, right, which enhance the chances of cancer. So some people, they can have genes which have a higher chance of causing cancer, but the disease cancer itself, it is not caused by any genetic makeup. Although some people can be susceptible to cancer more as compared to any other person, but it is caused by certain factors, right, which we call the carcinogens, if you want to know, although we will talk about cancers in detail. So yes, these are carcinogens. Carcinogens, these are the factors which cause cancer, and we'll talk about that, right? So cancer is another non-communicable acquired disease. After that, let us talk about the communicable diseases. These are the diseases that we will talk about in this chapter, right? So first we have the bacterial diseases caused by bacteria. Here bacteria is a pathogen, right? Disease causing organism. So we can have bacterial diseases, viral diseases caused by viruses, protozoan diseases, right? Helminthic diseases and fungal diseases. So these are the five agents and whose diseases that we will talk about. So bacterial diseases can be typhoid. I'm sure that you've heard of typhoid. It is related to the intestine. It is a disease in which you're not able to digest the food well and you lose appetite. So all these things, they come under typhoid. We'll talk about it. Pneumonia is another bacterial disease, and these two diseases will be talked about in detail. After that, we have diphtheria, right? We have bacterial dysentery and plague. So all these diseases, they are caused by the bacteria. After that, we have viral diseases, and the best example is a common cold, right, which everyone suffers from. So common cold is a viral disease which we will talk about, and also polio is a viral disease. Other diseases like dengue, chikungunya, right, all these diseases, they are also caused by viruses, right? So we'll talk about that. After that, we have protozoans. I hope that you remember what protozoans are. So in protista, right, you remember they, I'm trying to open the link. Let's see. It is still loading. I'm live. It is still loading. I have no idea. Am I live? I mean, I should be. It says, what does it say? It doesn't say anything. Let me check the internet. Am I online? I think I'm online. The camera is stuck. The camera is not working. Am I audible? Let's see. I can teach. I'm not visible. What should I do? Let us talk about the topic. We have a few minutes left. I think we should continue with the discussion. Let's see. So yeah, whatever. So we were talking about the types of diseases, and in that, what should I do? So I might have to stop the stream. There was a technical issue basically. The battery tells. No, the mode should be teaching. I get back to where I was. So we were talking about the types of diseases, and yes, we are going to talk about all these different diseases: bacterial diseases, viral diseases, and then we'll talk about protozoan diseases. Again, protozoa are a type of protista. So protista is the whole kingdom, and in that we have protozoans, and actually they are very close relatives of animals, right? So yes, protozoan diseases will include malaria. Malaria is something that we will talk about in great detail, right? So let me just see if the class is all right now. I think it should be. All right, let's move on. So we'll talk about malaria in the next class, and we'll also talk about amoebiasis, something which is caused by amoeba, right? So amoeba are also type of protozoans that cause something related to the intestine. So we will talk about that. After that, we have helminthic diseases. Now, helminths, if you remember, or if you remember the term escarments, escarments, these are types of animals. These are non-vertebrates, and they can also cause some serious diseases in human beings. The three major diseases are ascariasis, we'll talk about that, filariasis, which we also call elephantiasis. In this, the person's leg, it becomes swollen like an elephant's leg, right? And in this ascariasis, the intestines, they are filled with long thread-like or worm-like organisms, and they look like noodles, right? So it appears like the person has not basically eaten the noodles well, and they have blocked the intestine, but these are actually the organisms, the helminthic organisms that cause this disease. So we have ascariasis, filariasis, and this is teniasis. This is something that we don't need to talk about. It is out of syllabus, but it is again a disease related to the intestines, and it can be very fatal in certain stages, but we don't need to know about it. And finally, we will talk about bacterial diseases. Is the stream all right? Yes, I think yes, the stream is all right. All right, and we will talk about fungal disease and ringworm. In that, we'll talk about ringworm. So let us quickly move on and talk about all these things. So yes, infectious diseases are the diseases which are spread from the infected person to another person. So these diseases, they are easily transmitted from one person to another via pathogens. The infectious diseases are very common, and everyone suffers from these at some time or another. We all have suffered from certain infectious diseases. Common cold, the name common cold, it stands that it is a very common disease, and we suffer from a lot of diseases like dengue, chikungunya, and typhoid, pneumonia. All these things, they are infectious diseases, and all of us, they suffer from some type of infectious disease in our lifetime. Now let us understand what a pathogen is, right? So a pathogen is the disease causing organisms. So infectious disease causing agents are called pathogens, right? So these are of various types. We have talked about them. It can be bacteria, virus, protozoans, helminths, or fungi. So all these organisms that cause diseases in our body, they are known as pathogens. In fact, the word pathogen is derived from two words. Patho means diseases and getho, gens means they generate, right? So they cause diseases. Let's move on. And now let's talk about certain adaptations, certain cheat codes that these pathogens use to survive in our body, because our body has immune system to fight against these pathogens, but still they find a way to survive and cause harms to the body. So they have certain adaptations that allow them to do so. So let us see what are these pathogens. They have to adapt to life within the environment of the host, which is not ideal for their survival, but they have certain adaptations. For example, the pathogen that enter the gut means the whole stomach and intestine, right? So it must know a way of surviving in the stomach at the low pH. So the stomach has a very low pH, a pH of about 1.8, right? And resisting the digestive enzymes. So yes, the enzymes can break the pathogen, the low pH can kill the pathogen. So it has to adapt. It has to develop certain mechanisms in order to survive in the environment given by the host's body, right? So several different adaptations are seen in pathogens. Some pathogens, they have hooks, right? So they have hooks which allow them to attach to the surface of the body, right? They can have suckers. These are organs which allow them to suck the blood or anything else from the host's body. Again, host is the organism that basically carries the pathogen. So host is the organism that I should write that organism on which pathogen attacks, on which pathogen attacks, right? Because pathogen are carried by vectors, right? So organisms on which pathogens attack, these are hosts like us. All right, let's move on. So this is the basic idea of the adaptations of the pathogens. Let's move on, and now let's talk about vectors. These are the organisms that carry the pathogens. So a disease vector is any living agent that carries and transmits an infectious pathogen to another living organism. Agents regarded as vectors are organisms such as they can be parasites that live on our body, or it can be any microbe. The best example of a vector is female Anopheles mosquito. Female Anopheles mosquito, right? So it is basically a mosquito which carries a pathogen which is plasmodium, right? And that plasmodium, it causes a very dangerous disease which is malaria. So it causes malaria, right? So yes, in this case, the female Anopheles mosquito is carrying this plasmodium. Hence, it is the vector. And this plasmodium, this is the pathogen, the organism that is actually causing the disease. So this is going to be the pathogen, and it is carried by the female Anopheles. So this is a great example of a vector. All right. So I hope this is clear to you. Let's move on. Alright, so finally, let us start our discussion with the common diseases caused in the organism, right? So let's quickly talk about them. So first is the typhoid fever, right? Typhoid fever, also known as enteric fever. Enteric means intestinal. The word enteric means related to intestine, right? So you should remember that enteric means related to gut or intestine, right? Related to intestine. So it is the fever of intestine, and it is caused by a pathogen known as Salmonella typhi. which is a bacterium. It is a bacterium. Again, bacterium is the word used for a single, right? It is a singular word, and when we have many bacterium, we call them bacteria. So yes, this particular bacterium, Salmonella typhi, it causes the typhoid fever. Now let us understand the characteristics of this fever. So these pathogens, the Salmonella typhi, they generally enter the small intestine, right? How? Through food and water contaminated with them. So yes, if the food or water is not clean, it might contain these bacteria, and these bacteria, once we eat the food which has these bacteria, they can enter our intestine. So here we learn two things, that which organ is attacked, small intestine. Yes, so organ, target organ basically. So this is the target organ of the pathogen, right? And the mode of transmission is contaminated food. We call it feco-oral pathway. Feco-oral pathway, because see, if you have the pathogen in your body, and your feces will also contain the pathogen, and that feces can contaminate other food and other food items and water, and they can cause the same infection in some other person. So your feces are causing infection to some other person who is orally intaking it. So it is the feco-oral pathway. I should write pathway here, right? So it is feco-oral pathway. All right. Now, after entering in intestines, they do not stop. They migrate to other organs through blood. So yes, through intestines they move into blood, and then they can spread in the whole body, right? So these are the major features of typhoid fever. Now let us see what are the symptoms. How do we know that we have typhoid? What are the symptoms that we observe in our body? What are these changes? So the changes can be, first of all, sustained high fever. So your body temperature will increase. The normal body temperature is 37 degrees Celsius. It will increase, and it will be between 39 to 40 degrees Celsius. So it will significantly increase, and it will stay that way for a longer period. And you will also feel weakness. So hello, what is this? What are these messages? Some sort of code word, right? Sorry, I do not understand what is this language. Whatever, let us understand the topic. So yes, the body will experience weakness and headache as well. So these are the general symptoms. Now these three are the symptoms related to the intestine. So what are these? Basically, we will experience stomach pain, right? We will experience constipation, where the fecal movement reduces, and loss of appetite. Loss of appetite means you won't feel like eating anything, right? You won't feel hungry. Your hunger will die. So all these are the symptoms related to the typhoid fever. And finally, in severe cases, if the fever is not treated, if you do not get treatment in time, it can get severe, it can get serious. And in those severe cases, what happens? Intestinal perforation and death. So basically, these bacteria, what they do, for example, this, let's say, this is the intestine, and they live in the intestine, right? This is the intestine, and inside that we have these Salmonella typhi. What they do is they perforate it, they break the wall of intestine, and yes, it will lead to death, right? So this perforation can lead to death. So this is a severe case of typhoid. I hope it is clear to you. Now let's talk about the test of typhoid fever. How can we confirm whether or not we have a typhoid? So we have a test for typhoid, diagnostic test, right? Test for basically diagnosis. Diagnosis is the procedure of finding out whether or not we are infected, right? So for diagnosis, the test that we have for typhoid is the Vidal test. It is a very common test, right, which we use to find out whether we have typhoid or not, whether we are infected by the bacteria or not. Now, another very interesting thing related to the typhoid fever is a historic classical case of Mary Malone. She was a woman who worked at a restaurant. So she was a carrier of Salmonella typhi, the bacteria that causes typhoid. She herself, she developed the immunity, so she was not facing any harmful effect of that virus. But whenever she cooked, she transmitted that bacteria to other restaurant customers, and whoever ate the food got infected, and many people died. It was a very historic case. See, it was in the newspapers. So let us discuss it. So a classical case of medicine is that of Mary Malone. Her nickname was Typhoid Mary. Right? It is worth mentioning here. So she was a cook by profession, and she was a typhoid carrier who continued to spread typhoid for many years through the food she prepared. So through her prepared food, many people got infected by typhoid and many died. Right? So she was a killer, right? So yes, this is the case of Typhoid Mary. So this is all that you need to know about typhoid. Let us move on to the second bacterial disease, which is pneumonia. Right? So pneumonia is another bacterial disease which infects the lungs, and it can be caused by two bacteria. Right? So the first is Streptococcus pneumoniae, and other is Haemophilus influenzae or influenza. So these are the two bacteria that cause the pneumonia disease, right? Streptococcus pneumonia and Haemophilus influenza. So let us quickly go through all the points related to pneumonia. So a healthy person acquires infection by inhaling the droplets or aerosol released by infected person. So see, if someone is infected by pneumonia, they sneeze a lot, they cough a lot, and through their sneeze and cough, they release a lot of aerosol, and that aerosol can contain the bacteria. And if we are close to them, we can inhale that, and that will cause infection, right? Or even by sharing glasses and utensils with the infected person. So everything that the person touches is susceptible to contain the bacteria, right? And if you touch the same thing and somehow the bacteria goes into you, you will get infected. So yes, this is a disease in which you have to maintain a distance from the infected person, right? So what does it infect? It infects the alveoli. What are alveoli? The air-filled sacs of the lungs, the most terminal part of the lungs, and this is how they look like. I also had the image of typhoid bacteria, right? So this is Salmonella typhi. That's how it looks like. Yes. So yes, and this is how Streptococcus pneumonia looks like. So they infect, their target organ is the lungs and precisely the alveoli, the air-filled sac-like structures. Now, as a result of the infection, the alveoli, they get filled with fluid. So you can imagine in the alveoli, fluid gets filled. Now, remember that it is not water. Water does not get filled. Basically, there is a lot of bacteria inside it. So to fight all that bacteria, a lot of fluid enter it of immune system, and it will reduce the surface area of alveoli, which will cause problem in respiration. As you can see that it will lead to severe problems in respiration, and that is how the harmful effects of pneumonia are seen. So this is the whole overview, and now let us see what are the symptoms. So symptoms are pretty common. We will have fever, increased body temperature, we'll have chills, we will have a feeling of cold, right? We will cough, of course, right? And headache will be observed. So these are all the common symptoms of pneumonia. Now, what can be the severe problems if we do not treat it on time? So in severe cases, the lips and fingernails may turn gray to bluish in color, right? So your lips and your nails, they will lose their color. So they are pinkish in color by default, but they will turn gray to bluish in color, right? So this is what happens in the severe cases of pneumonia. All right, now let's talk about common cold, which is a bacterial disease. So this is a viral disease. So the two bacterial disease that we needed to talk about, we have already discussed them. We will talk about other bacterial diseases in the next class if the time allows. Meanwhile, let's talk about a very important disease, the common cold. So it is called by viruses, and these are rhinoviruses. So these are a group of different viruses that cause common cold. They look something like this, right? So let us see what happens in it. They infect the nose and respiratory passage, but not the lungs. Remember, in pneumonia, lungs are infected, alveoli are infected. But in the case of common cold, only the upper passage, right? The nose and the tracheal passage is infected. The lungs or the alveoli, they are not infected. So this is correct. So how does it spread? Similar to pneumonia. So droplets resulting from cough or sneezes of an infected person are either inhaled directly or transmitted through contaminated objects. It can be anything like pens, books, cups, doorknobs, computer keyboard or mouse. Anything that the infected person touches can spread the disease, and it can cause infection in a healthy person, right? So the common cold, it spreads pretty rapidly and pretty easily. Now what can be the symptoms of common cold? First is nasal congestion, which is blockage, right? Congestion means blockage of the nose, right? Next we have discharge, release of fluid from the nose, right? Release of fluid from nose. Right, after that we have sour throat. So you cannot speak very well, you have problem in speaking. Hoarseness, in which the voice becomes deepened, and it basically the person sounds crackling. They have a crackling voice, right? You can have cough, you can have headache, and you will feel tired, and this will last for 3 to 7 days. I'm sure you all are aware of all these symptoms. All of us suffer from the common cold. That's why it is called common cold. So yes, with that, all the discussion that we had to do today is done. Now let's talk about a few things. I invite you all to join the Telegram group of the new Unacademy ISC boards, right? The link will be in the description box. So yes, make sure to join that to get all the updates. And yes, this new YouTube channel is something that we are starting, and we hope that you will subscribe it to get the notification for all the classes. So press the bell icon as well to get all the notifications, and the target at the moment is of 100 subscribers. Let us all make a community of all the learners and teachers, and we will all learn and get great marks. And yes, these are all my upcoming special classes, and you can join all these special classes for free if you use this code, right? So this is the code you should join, and the links to my profile will be in the description, right? Now Unacademy's live classes are actually free, so you can use my code and you can enjoy the live classes. So we have real-time interactions, we have things like polls are great. You can ask questions in the special classes as well, right? Now let me tell you how you can watch my live classes. So first, download the Unacademy app from the App Store, Play Store. Then you open the app, get started, right? Fill your mobile number, do all the formalities, basically all the things that you need to do. Set up an email ID to get all the notification and stuff. Select your course and your class, right? Your course and your class, select the language, and you're good to go, right? So yes, today we talked about health. Let us quickly recap. We talked about disease, and we talked about the common diseases like typhoid and pneumonia, and we also talked about common cold. So this is all that we learned today, right? And again, this is the code that you can use, right? So yes, go on, download the Unacademy app to enjoy all the great features. So with that, I take a leave. I wish you all the luck and good night.